They denied him first class, then found out he owns the contract. Sir, this line is for first class only. The voice was polished, almost pleasant, but not quite. It hovered on the edge of suspicion, the kind that came gift-wrapped in a customer service smile. Jordan Avery, immaculately dressed in a tailored gray suit, paused. Behind him, the soft wheels of his carry-on stopped turning. "I'm aware," he replied calmly. The gate agent blinked, clearly expecting something else. Confusion, maybe, or an embarrassed step backward. But Jordan didn't move. He wasn't lost. He wasn't confused. He wasn't in the wrong line. She looked him up and down, a quick skin masked as professional attentiveness. "I'm sorry, but first-class check-in is." "I'm flying first class," Jordan interrupted gently, his tone not sharp, just finished. He reached into his blazer and retrieved his boarding pass, extending it with practiced ease. Still, the doubt lingered in her eyes like a shadow that wouldn't move with the light. Behind her, a second employee, a man with a walkie-talkie clipped to his belt, stepped forward. "Is there a problem?" he asked, eyeing Jordan, not the agent. The question wasn't a question. "No problem," Jordan said, handing the boarding pass to the first agent again. "Unless someone else is creating one." The moment stretched thin, pulled tight with implications. Around them, the hum of the terminal carried on. Families chattering, heels clacking across tile, a child tugging a rolling backpack. The agent scanned the ticket. A soft beep. She stared at the screen for a second too long, then looked up, her smile brittle now. "I'll need to call a supervisor." And just like that, the mask slipped. This wasn't about a boarding pass. It never had been. Jordan Avery, CEO of a logistics firm with a $48 million contract under renewal with this very airline, stepped back slightly and pulled out his phone. His face remained calm, dignified. One quiet call, and the ripple would begin. The call connected in 2 rings. "Yes, sir," came the voice on the other end, crisp with recognition. "Mark," Jordan said, his voice barely above conversational. "I'm at gate B27. You'll want to contact your client services director immediately." There was a pause. Not confusion, just the pause of someone processing the implications. "Understood. I'll take care of it right now." Jordan ended the call and slipped the phone back into his inner jacket pocket. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't move. He simply stood, like an oak in a storm, unmoved by the small tremors around him. The gate agent, now joined by her supervisor, whispered urgently. The supervisor, a middle-aged woman with tight lips and a tablet clutched like a shield, approached Jordan with wary professionalism. "Sir, I'm told there was some confusion," she said. "There was no confusion," Jordan replied. "Only assumptions." Her eyes flinched at that. Just a flicker. "We sincerely apologize if—" "I'm not here for apologies." His tone was polite, even soft. "I'm here for my flight." Just then, the walkie-talkie on the belt of the male employee crackled to life. "Gate B27. Hold current boarding. Executive ops en route." The supervisor stiffened. Her mouth opened slightly, closed again. "I assume that means we're done here?" Jordan asked. She nodded mutely, then gestured to the scanner. "Of course, sir. Right this way." He stepped forward, not triumphant, not smug. Just steady. And as he passed the agent who had doubted him, he offered her a brief, unreadable glance. Not angry, just honest. The kind of look that would stay with her for days. 10 minutes later, the energy at gate B27 had shifted. What had been an ordinary departure point was now a pocket of nervous urgency. 2 men in sleek suits emerged from the private security corridor, bypassing passengers entirely. They moved with the purposeful glide of corporate gravity, scanning the area as if assessing damage control after a minor explosion. One approached the gate supervisor. "Where is he?" he asked, low and tight. "He's already boarded," she replied quickly, eyes downcast. The man clenched his jaw. "Did you know who he was?" We didn't recognize him." "That man," he said, voice sharp, "is Jordan Avery, CEO of Avery Global Logistics. His company handles freight for 22 of our international cargo hubs, including the JFK expansion." The supervisor paled. Meanwhile, in first class, Jordan sat with one leg crossed, sipping water. Not champagne, water. His phone was now off. His folder of briefing notes untouched. He gazed out the window, calm as ever, watching the tarmac workers move like ants beneath the wing. Inside the terminal, emails began flying. Corporate, legal, public relations. The wheels of response turned fast, but they were already behind. What the staff at Gate B27 hadn't seen was that this wasn't just a powerful man delayed. It was a mirror being held up to the entire structure. A mirror that reflected assumptions, patterns, quiet prejudice dressed in protocol. And now the top brass had to look. 35,000 feet above the earth, the cabin was quiet. Jordan leaned back slightly in his seat, the hush of first class settling over him like a weighted blanket. A flight attendant approached, this one, clearly briefed, offering him a new drink and a warm towel with a tremble of practiced deference. "Mr. Avery," she said, her voice softer now. "We sincerely apologize for earlier. We were told you'd be contacted shortly by our senior executive team." He gave a slight nod. "Thank you." He didn't ask for anything else. Didn't speak of what happened. But the quiet around him told its own story. Two rows up, a pair of business travelers whispered, having recognized him from a Forbes feature. One stole glances, wide-eyed. The other typed on his phone, already updating someone about the incident. Jordan closed his eyes, momentarily resting his head back. This wasn't new. Not the suspicion. Not the quiet corrections that came too late. Not the subtle delays that never happened to his white counterparts in identical suits. But this time, it was different. Because now, the board of a global airline would feel it. And more importantly, so would every staff member who had ever believed that dignity could be measured by skin tone. At 41,000 feet, an email detonated in inboxes across the airline's executive suite. Subject, urgent, incident involving Mr. Jordan Avery, immediate response required. From Chief Client Relations Officer to CEO, Legal, Public Affairs, Cargo Division, HR. The message was clear, direct, cold with consequence. Mr. Avery had been stopped, questioned, and delayed at the gate despite holding a first-class ticket. And more importantly, despite holding one of the largest active logistics contracts in the airline's history. The email attached a bullet-pointed incident summary, complete with timestamps, employee IDs, and gate security footage references. Legal flagged potential breach of contract. Public affairs flagged reputational risk. The CEO replied with 3 words, "Fix this. Now." Back at Gate B27, the young agent who had initially blocked Jordan stood in the break room, her hands trembling around a paper cup. She wasn't crying, but her face had gone blank. The kind of blank that happens when a person realizes the weight of what they didn't see before. "I didn't know," she said quietly to the supervisor beside her. "That's the problem," the supervisor replied, barely above a whisper. Outside the glass wall of the terminal, the plane to San Francisco was disappearing into the clouds. But the storm it left behind was just beginning to break. While the plane cut through the sky, an emergency call assembled at the airline's headquarters. 5 people joined, VPs, directors, one tight-jawed legal counsel. Their voices were hushed, clipped, as if trying to contain a fire with paper fans. "Has he responded directly yet?" asked the chief legal officer. "No," replied the VP of corporate accounts. But his assistant forwarded the call log. He called Mark Edmonds. That name pulled the call into a different register. Mark Edmonds wasn't just any executive. He was a senior board member, known for discretion, known for influence, and known for the fact that he was the one who brokered the initial $48 million freight deal with Jordan Avery's firm. "Jesus," someone muttered. "Do we know what he said?" "Doesn't matter," said legal. The signal was sent. There was a pause. Then came the inevitable suggestion. Should we prepare a public apology? Absolutely not. Not until we hear from Avery himself. Right now, we're not saving face. We're saving the contract. On the other side of the world, Jordan sipped his drink and opened the in-flight menu. He didn't know about the call, not yet. But he knew how systems worked. He didn't have to yell. All he had to do was not speak, and let them feel the silence. Back on the ground, Mark Edmonds stepped into the CEO's office without knocking. He held a folder, thick, tabbed, and precise. "Before this gets worse," he said, dropping it onto the glass desk, "you need to read every word." The CEO didn't open it immediately. He stared at Mark, brow furrowed. "You think he's going to pull the contract?" "No," Mark said. "I think he's going to make us think about why he hasn't pulled it yet." They both knew Jordan Avery didn't need the airline. His company could reroute freight in 48 hours. He had leverage, not because of his wealth, but because of his restraint. Because he hadn't made a public statement. Because he hadn't tweeted. Because he hadn't called reporters. He had done something far more surgical. He made one quiet call and let them panic. The CEO finally opened the folder. Inside, not just contract terms, but photos, media coverage, joint press from the last cargo ribbon cutting, where Jordan had stood smiling beside their own leadership team. And then, stapled to the back, a list of internal DI initiatives. They suddenly read like satire. Mark said, "He won't say a word. That's not how he works. But if we're smart, we'll act before he makes us irrelevant." The silence in the room hung like a verdict. As the plane began its descent into San Francisco, the cabin lights dimmed. Passengers stirred, stretching, gathering items. Jordan remained still, eyes on the skyline breaking through the clouds below. The woman seated across the aisle glanced at him, recognition lighting her face. "Excuse me," she said gently. "Are you Jordan Avery?" He turned toward her. "I am." "I thought so," she said with a small, reverent nod. "I saw your talk at the Global Freight Summit last year. My team's been trying to mirror your efficiency model." Jordan smiled slightly. "I appreciate that." She hesitated, then added, "I just wanted to say what happened back there. At the gate? I saw it." Jordan didn't respond right away. Then, most people see it. They just look away. The woman looked down, chastened. But he wasn't scolding her. His voice held no bitterness, just clarity. The kind that settles in after years of walking through doors that don't open easily, even when you've built the building. "I've learned," Jordan said. "You can either demand respect or carry yourself in a way that makes its absence visible." The landing gear groaned as the wheels unfolded beneath them. He folded his napkin, straightened his cuffs, and prepared to disembark, not just the plane, but into a different kind of moment, one where everyone was finally watching. As the plane taxied to the gate, Jordan's phone buzzed back to life. 17 messages, 3 missed calls, 2 voicemails, none of them from his assistant. All from names at the top of the airline's food chain. People who'd never bothered to speak to him directly during contract renewals, now rushing to connect. He ignored them for the moment. Instead, he reached for his bag with measured calm, standing as the seatbelt sign dinged off. He exited first, as expected of a first-class passenger. But this time, the walk down the jet bridge felt different. There, just outside the gate, stood a man in a pressed navy blazer with the airline's crest. Beside him, the young gate agent from earlier, her posture stiff, eyes down. The man stepped forward. "Mr. Avery, I'm Michael Trenton, Senior VP of Customer Operations. I'd like to personally apologize." Jordan stopped, one hand in his pocket. "You already did. When you asked for my ID. Twice." The silence cut clean. The agent beside Trenton flinched, but Jordan didn't look at her. His voice was still calm, still low. But this time, no one mistook it for passivity. "I'm not interested in apologies. I'm interested in whether you treat respect as policy or as a performance when power walks through your gate." Then, with a nod so slight it was almost ceremonial, Jordan walked past them. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. By the next morning, the airline's internal Slack channels were buzzing, not with gossip, but with directives. A gate interaction review had been ordered across all major airports. Mandatory implicit bias training was reinstated, with Jordan's name never explicitly mentioned, but the timing spoke louder than any memo. Meanwhile, in a quiet boardroom with mirrored walls and leather chairs, the CEO faced a somber quorum of executives. "We need to get ahead of this," one said. "We're not ahead of anything," another replied flatly. "We're scrambling behind a man who said almost nothing, and still move the entire company. Someone else chimed in, holding up a printed email from the client account liaison. Avery hasn't responded to our offer to meet in person. That's unusual. But Mark Edmonds only smiled, tired but impressed. That is his response. A murmur of agreement passed through the room. It wasn't revenge Jordan Avery wanted. It was recognition of what had gone unseen for too long. And now, with the airline's own executives questioning the quiet fault lines in their structure, his point had been made, wordlessly, powerfully, and permanently. He didn't need to bring the company down. He made them see the cracks. That evening, Jordan sat in his home office, city lights flickering against the glass. On his desk was a letter he had drafted hours earlier, still unsigned. It was a termination notice, formal, precise, with clear contractual citations that would allow him to pull Avery Global Logistics' entire freight account from the airline within 72 hours. He read it once more, slowly, then folded it. Unsent. Instead, he opened a blank page and began writing something else. A message, not of retaliation, but of instruction. It outlined 5 recommendations to the airline's executive board: measures for bias training, gate-level de-escalation protocols, transparency reviews, and a third-party oversight process. There was no threat, no legalese, just strategy. He signed that one, not because he wanted to be their consultant, but because if they were smart, they'd take the correction from someone who had every right to walk away, and chose instead to show them how not to repeat the same failure. In his experience, dignity wasn't about being above confrontation. It was about confronting without lowering yourself. And tonight, Jordan Avery had done both. Weeks later, the airline quietly launched a new internal campaign. No press release, no grand reveal, just a change in policy. New guidelines for how gate staff are trained to approach passengers. Anonymous surveys. Field audits at random terminals. A new phrase slipped into onboarding. Dignity is not appearance-based. They never said his name. But everyone in the know, especially at Gate B27, remembered. And Jordan? He said nothing more about it. He simply continued his work, partnering, building, investing in better systems. But at a private equity roundtable, when someone asked about the incident in passing, he responded with the same calm that had defined every step. Assumptions are dangerous because they tell us more about the person making them than the person receiving them. But sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do isn't react. It's to reveal. A pause. Then, a quiet smile. Respect doesn't begin with power. It begins with how you treat someone when you think they don't have any. Thank you for watching. Subscribe me and hit the notification bell to not miss new stories. Bye.